Hi, Darin Mangum here, the PPM Attorney. If you've watched a lot of my videos, you can probably tell that there's many situations when, when you're raising capital that you're going to definitely need to consult a securities attorney. Anytime you're dealing with investors, and you probably think, okay, yeah, anytime I'm dealing with an investor, I need a PPM. Now that's generally true most of the time. Um, I got a question the other day from a client that said, hey, when would I just not need to use a PPM? When would I not need to use one? And that's a good question, especially coming from someone who makes his living like I do, drafting PPMs for clients, private placement memorandums, offering documents for clients. You think I would say, well, yeah, you need one all the time, obviously, right? Um, there's really two situations where I've identified where you may not want to go to the trouble or an expense of a PPM. Um, the first one would be if you're receiving investment capital from one large investor. Usually a PPM are designed for multiple, lots of investors. Usually if you're dealing with either a venture capital type firm, type investor, they're just doing one tranche into your company from one source. Obviously you're going to need to do, closing documents and subscription agreements and things like that. But oftentimes you're not uh, probably going to go through the trouble of doing a private placement memorandum. Obviously, you're going to want to have good representation, good counsel, and I oftentimes, am called up to do, work for a client that's doing a VC type transaction, or if they're doing like an angel type investor that's doing, say, 500,000 or more, and it's just a single investor. Certainly a PPM may be a little bit overkill. Um, at the same time, we do have, I do have PPM options at all different price points, and so there really it's not a, there really shouldn't be a financial excuse to not do a PPM. But in a case where you just have a single investor, they're just investing, especially if they're an institutional investor, they can do their own due diligence and all of that. Certainly a PPM may not be applicable. The other situation where it may not be applicable is if all the investors, if all the people that are putting money into your company, all of them are actually running the business, right? They're active partners. They're actually not only investing, they're not passive investors, in other words, right? They're investing money, but they're also working at the company and or developing the business and all of that. They're taking an active role. They're not purely passive, right? In that kind of situation, it's like, hey, we're all pitching in and throwing in our money, and we're all going to go do this together. Um, certainly in that case, PPM may not, certainly make sense either, right? To the extent some investors are passive type investors, okay, now you may want to take a hard look at it. And oftentimes what I tell clients is, hey, look, if you have more than just one investor, one or two big investors, if you have, say any more, 2 to 3 on up, right? Or if you're raising more than say $500,000, right? Like, say, if you're just going to be raising 100,000 from one investor, okay, do I really want to go through the expense of doing a PPM? Maybe you don't. Maybe that doesn't make sense unless you're going to maybe continue to raise capital in the future, right? Because really a PPM is a tool, right? It's a capital raising tool for a company or a business. And so, just because you're not using the PPM today doesn't mean you couldn't use it, say, 2 or 3 months from now, or 6 months from now, a year from now. Hey, well, let's update this PPM and use it to raise some more capital. But usually, I'll tell clients is the higher the number, the larger amount of money you're raising, or the larger number of investors you're bringing in, your exposure and your risk get exponentially greater, just like a hockey stick. that that risk exposure gets up. And so again, those trigger points. Okay, more than one or two investors, and hey, if you're going to raise more than $500,000 or more, that's really where you start to say, okay, hey, you know what, we need to really look at getting a PPM in place. And like I said, I mean, really, there's whether you hire me or not, there's no excuse not to have a PPM if you're raising capital. And again, like I said, design different packages that really fit any budget. There's really not an excuse not to have one. It's very, depending on if you just need bare basic PPM, private placement memorandum services, or if you want, like a lot of my clients do, they have me be their securities attorney, not just to do the documents, but also to be on the team and be their securities attorney for the duration of the offering. Oftentimes, going for 3 to 6 to 12 months, and I'm a continual resource. And so anyway, it just really depends on you. And so the best way to know to know really what works best for you is just to just give me a call, shoot me an email. You can always give me a call on my cell phone, or shoot me a text, shoot me an email, Darin at the ppmattorney.com, or my cell phone is 801-787-9072. And we can chat about it. Again, no obligation. I never charge for phone calls, and so that way we can talk about your particular deal, whether it makes sense for you, and then give you an honest answer. So anyway, hope this is helpful, and thanks for watching my YouTube channel. Subscribe if you would, and hopefully you find the content helpful. Thank you.